Recording.
Yeah.
And welcome to Live from the Empire. This is Novy, and today I've got one of our PVN all-time greats, Z. Say hi, Z.
Hey, y'all. What's going on?
Okay, so our content's going to be a little bit different in the upcoming weeks. We're still working on the oil crisis investigation, but it's very deep, very complicated, and we want to make sure we're giving you all the facts and not blindly making things up on live TV. I mean, that's what cable's for. So, to that end, we thought that it would be great for you to get to know all of us and what we're doing, since we kind of revamped the network and show you what we're passionate about. Also, these interviews will be largely pre-recorded. Fleece, a researcher and a valued member of our team, is going to be doing some of them because I will be out for surgery on June 2nd through the rest of it. I'm fine. It's just I've got a chronic health conditions and they gotta get that checked out. You know?
Most definitely. I definitely understand.
So we're gonna get that sorted out. So our first person to interview is Z. So Z, what got you in PVN?
Okay, so pretty much what got me to PVN is that I was like, I don't know if anybody remembers the 1,000 comrades, no comrades under 1,000 on the Twitter campaign. It brought me into left Twitter I'd say about a year and a half ago. And sometime like last year, I saw a call out from CJ from Compton J, who's currently in RBN, formerly Fred Hampton leftist. And he was calling out and seeing if anybody wanted to be on panels every Wednesday night, and I'll be me being jobless and definitely ready to talk and talk politics to people, especially after the summer before. I was definitely ready to talk to the collective of people, and that's where the story begins. And then we've had some ups and downs since then. So,
so you are. Now, would you say you're a leftist, a communist, a socialist, anarchist? Like, what of those would you ascribe to?
I would subscribe. Okay, so in my view, I probably fall under, when it goes, I'm definitely socialist, and I probably fall under the Marxist-Leninism category. Focusing on like a lot of third world global South socialism. So like I'm more interested though in the Marxist-Leninist projects that took place in places like China or South America, Cuba, places like that. But I would say mostly just a socialist with Marxist-Leninist aspects, and every day reading something new. Things are definitely always like changing, but definitely left.
Right, I completely get it. Me personally, I used to be a anarcho-syndicalist.
Yeah.
Which basically means I think the state really shouldn't exist at a larger scale, and I believe in the power of unions. And I still have some of those leanings, but I'm more toward the communist side, just more in terms of a broader category of getting things done with. But exactly. I'm really fascinated by groups like with the work they've done in Cuba and the form of socialism that flourished in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly.
So
those are the ones that are really interesting, because we only hear about even with the USSR, we really don't. You have to go look into it to know the actual basis of it. So it's really
right. And there's so much propaganda about it.
Exactly.
One of the things that is interesting is that we're talking about people like Gaddafi, And American propaganda said Gaddafi's this horrible person, blah 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 blah. Which, if you actually look at the history and talk to people who lived there, he really wasn't.
Some of the social programs that were being implemented in Libya were like next level. Like there was things that were like, as normal, like you wouldn't even think a socialist was thinking of it. Like it was so far, like a communist, it was so far.
Yeah,
like, it was innovative as hell. It was like, holy shit.
It was so next level. Yeah, he did some really, really evil stuff, but he's definitely somebody worth studying. And
exactly.
I think that, another thing that I'm really interested in is by people like Sankara, the Nation of Islam, the Black Panthers, especially with how they blended religion, especially Islam and Protestant Christianity, like baptism, with their communist and socialist leanings, because a lot of people think you can't be left and be religious when
it's quite the opposite, actually.
Right. I mean, like being an atheist and being left is just as okay as being religious and being left.
And sometimes atheists are going too far. Like as an atheist, I think that a majority of, especially like I would say, white atheism is basically just people trying to be intellectual, and then it comes out being their own religion, which is usually pretty weird. It's weird. It's just it's like a militaristic atheism is just like the worst.
Right. And I mean, I personally am under the thing where I don't really care what your religion is as long as you're not hurting anybody. Like Islam, you don't have a religion, you're atheist or whatever. Like Flying Spaghetti Monster, Jedi, I don't care. I mean, there's interesting things of all of it. I'm particularly fascinated by the Church of Satan. I think that's pretty cool.
I do think that's very interesting. It's the fundamentalism that and extremism that I like.
Right.
I'm vehemently against. Like religion itself, fine, but when people start being fundamental and start being extremists, it starts affecting like other things that make them even sometimes it's even hypocritical. But it just when it gets to that point, no.
Right, and fundamentalism, it can be. You can find it in every religion, and you can also find in atheism with the militant atheists that you're seeing as well, which is really frustrating because it completely misses the point. If we're trying to build a coalition with everybody to knock off our oppressors and build class consciousness, letting them divide us on the basis of religion or lack thereof is not great.
Yeah, I think that we focus a lot on class reductionism and race reductionism, but we never really talk about religious reductionism when people like boil things down because the person was religious, and it's like that's not always like you can't always just reduce it down to the religion. You can't always do that because most of the time it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the way the religion is being portrayed to them and the sect that it never represents the whole. So
right. And I completely agree with you. And we actually have these kind of conversations all the time on our Discord, which we will soon be making available to our lovely viewers if you guys want to talk with us. But another thing I wanted to ask was, what radicalized you? What really got you on the path of reading Sankara or talking about Malcolm X?
Okay.
What really got you there?
I think that so I've always been like have left inclinations, like in communist inclinations, to where like I would always just be like, why can't people be? I remember being like little and asking, why can't people have their needs met, and then we just have to pay for our wants? And like I would be like that, like when I was like a little bit. I asked my mom that, and she'd be like, because that's just the way things are. And I'm just like, and I always reject that notion of like things being the way they are. So when I got older, around 2016, I think everybody has I think a lot of people in America have the Bernie Sanders thing in 2016. But I think some of the best stories come out of the disappointment from Bernie Sanders, because people kept looking leftward, and I was like one of those. At that point in time, I felt like I wanted to keep wanting to know what he was talking about as far as democratic socialism. So up until the second time he ran, I was trying to like learn about democratic socialism, but then I realized that democratic socialism was not what I was looking for either. I was looking for something a little bit even more left. So after he lost again, I think that pushed me into looking past, how do I say it? Because like a lot of times people tell you that the answer isn't just like voting, but at the same time you don't want to like veer out of the mainstream sometimes, because you don't want to feel like alienated. So you don't want to be like, no one should vote, blah blah blah. But after that happened, I just get like I haven't completely given up on the electoral system, but let me just say, unless like it's like a Green Party or someone that's like legit like a third party, don't want it. So after that, I started reading a lot more about Malcolm X and things like that, especially after the George Floyd protests. Like scary, still scary time, but it was a lot more scary for me because I had closed. We were closing our eyes to a lot of the things like the white supremacy and things like that were happening. So, and every time a shooting does happen, you see the same people come up, peddle the same books, peddle the same media, and those books are just keep leading us in circles because never really addressing the real things. So I wanted to go. So I started going back, started reading some Malcolm X, started reading things about Black Panthers, and then eventually you just start seeing that the connection between like worldwide imperialism and like the way America functions and like how its role in things like that, like the oppression of blacks, the genocide of everything, the genocide of indigenous genocide of indigenous peoples. There's a lot of genocides we've been privy to, unfortunately. And I think that that sparked me wanting to get into just reading more communist literature and socialist literature and radical, because like because for me, you don't have to necessarily be a hardcore like commie or hardcore socialist. You just have to be anti-capitalist, to be honest. Like as long as you're anti-capitalist and anti-imperial, then I think that you're good to go in my book.
Right. So that actually brings me to our next subject. On Rev Reader, you talk about these things. You talk about Malcolm X. You talk about Sankara. You talk about your first episode. You were talking about Asata, and who is really cool. And I didn't even know that much about her.
I might actually go back and redo that, like in the new format.
That would be.
I've been thinking about that a little bit.
That would be really awesome. So, what is your aim of your show? Because I love it so much. It's so informative and it's so entertaining. And no offense to my professors that I've had at school, but damn, you give good lectures.
Thank you. Revolutionary Reader mostly was like, honestly, when we start like about a year, when we first started PVN, I remember you being like, you trying to start a book club? And I was like, okay. But the thing is like at that point in time, I was just listening to straight audiobooks. So I was just like just crushing like 3 or 4 books like a month. And I'm just like, no one is doing this but me, because I didn't have it, because I was unemployed. So I had all this time. So I was just doing chores, just listening to books, taking care of the baby, listening to a book. So, but I've had to slow down a little bit. But the original intent of Revolutionary Reader is to just inform people about historic moments or historical figures that have pushed the boundaries of socially, or just not even just socially, like system-wise, like where these just completely came in and helped change the system, and movements as well. Because I think a lot of history is blurred to where history's only the person who's writing history is the one who won in the first place. So, a lot of things a lot of the answers, like I think I was saying in the last question, are in the books. It's just that we always are led to the wrong books when things go wrong. And I don't think that we should be waiting until something goes wrong to start studying. I think we should be trying to study these figures and trying to study moments in history to learn all the time, as much as we can, because if you don't know what happened back then, you won't have a concept of what's going on right now, because it's all one big picture. They're not separate events. So
right. So and when we changed from Populist Voice Network to People's Voice Network, like what is it, 2 months ago now?
Wait, was it March? It was March, yeah. So about 2 months. 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months. Jeez.
Yeah, it's been flying by, but it's just like whoa.
Yeah, it's been flying. So what is your new vision for the show?
The new vision for the show is I'm trying to I am planning eventually. I still have some plans for the show to implement. But time and sometimes planning doesn't always go the way you want it to. But the main thing I want to start doing is I want to start doing make it more of a book club. So sometimes I'm thinking about when we get our Twitch channel completely set up, which is set up. When we get the format we want it to go on. I'm thinking about doing like book readings sometimes. And I want to have a little bit more some spaces and things like that. And recently, what I've been doing is I've been doing polls on the our Twitter page, so we can so I can have the audience and whoever wants to choose the subject. And I don't want to. And what I'm going to start doing is the main videos is that I want them to be the last video I released was concerning violence by France Fanon, and you saw it's like a 3-minute info clip. So I want to start doing more shorter bits of videos, so people can get them in smaller chunks. So because a lot of times people don't pay attention to like giant lectures, but then you can get that one 3-4 minute video, and it might just change your whole like perspective on something.
Right, I completely agree, and it's important. I think my dad always said it was primacy and recency. The most important stuff first, and as succinct as possible.
So in that, I mean, he that's 100% like and being consistent. Like and that's one thing I think we've been seeing with our channel lately is that we've been a lot more consistent on the schedule, so we've been picking up a lot more people, and hopefully we can continue that and we keep the channel going.
I agree, and it has been slow growing, but it's not bad.
Hey.
And we literally started over from nothing, so I'm very pleased from where we ended up.
I'm glad we took the leap.
I am very, very pleased. So what questions do you have for me?
Okay. So what radicalized you?
Okay.
That's always one of my favorites. That's always a great question, to be honest. I love that question.
All right, so it was a mixture of things. I actually grew up in a rural town in Texas, North Texas, just like spitting distance from the Oklahoma border. So there was a lot of systemic racism there. There was a lot of environmental racism, and it's one of the most segregated towns in the country. And it has one of the largest wealth disparities. So
funny how those usually go hand in hand.
Yeah, I know. I know. And so it was a mixture of events. One of my earliest memories, my parents run a clinic where they work with low-income people, actually usually not making much more than they do, working with legal services, counseling, such things like that. And they also work with the NWSP and other organizations. And we had a back pasture where there were these old pecan trees, like older than the Constitution pecan trees, right? And we had goats back there. And this was like a natural pasture, and just lets alone because we kind of also had to farm in order to supplement the income.
For people who don't live in the South, like pecan trees are like fucking everywhere. Like they really are. They're like everywhere. And you go to some old person's backyard, and they're gonna be back there,
right?
Getting pecans.
So, and because of this, so we were living in this area, and it was a bunch of lower. Working class, lower middle class people, and that's where the office was, and our house was like right next to the office, right? And people could go on the pasture and do things that they wanted. They just had to get permission first. Makes sense. People would always be riding their dirt bikes through and paintballing, and it would always be these people from the rich neighborhood that literally surrounded our pasture on 3 of the 4 sides, and they would be paintballing my parents' patients' cars, including the cars of veterans.
And there's probably the same type of people who are like, you got to support the troops. And it's just
exactly.
It's just like
exactly. And one time they set off fireworks on the 4th of July, and they set them right next to the pecan trees, almost set them on fire.
I've never understood the fact that we know we have so many veterans, and we're just like, let's blow up fireworks.
Yeah, so that was great. Another thing, there was a construction waste. They were doing a housing development up the road, and there was this creek that was going through the housing development across our property, down the stream, right?
Yeah.
And as you went through the stream, downstream, the lower the income level went, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of in the middle. They put something in the water. I don't know what the hell it was, but something was put in the water, and it killed all the fish. So you wake up one day, and you're like 11 years old, in the middle of the summer. You walk outside, and there's all these fish
Just
floating up on top
at
of the
the
water.
that has to be. What do you think is like the plague or something?
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
that
you have
would
to think it's a plague, and it was apparently combined with this construction waste, with the hotter than normal temperatures due to climate change, and it killed the freaking fish because it killed the oxygen from the water. So
that's
we had to fight that, and it was a big deal.
that's
Plus, there
something
were
that I would
issues.
like. That's something that you should at some point like go back and like do a show on or something and talk about like because
Yeah,
that's like some Captain Planet shit. Like I
yeah,
have.
and they were there were things where they were charging the water more for minority neighborhoods than they were for white neighborhoods. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on at facilities. There were there was questionable judicial decisions. Basically, every trope you could have
Just
about the South.
this corruption all over the board.
Just so much corruption. Yeah, and so you basically end up going to be one of three ways. One, you end up being one of the baddies.
Mm-hmm.
You grow up and you just, or two, you just put your head in the sand and just try to ignore everything and get the hell out. Or three, you try to help and you get people yelling at you and giving you death threats. So my parents did the third option. And they would take me along to NAACP meetings and working with the women's shelter and stuff like that. And I'm like 12, 13 years old. And I would meet these leaders, these cool leaders, like people who were, formerly incarcerated, all these people who were trying to make a difference. And I just thought it was so cool and I wanted to be like them. So, and I started trying doing things when I was younger, doing activism as I got older and doing stuff. And it really frustrated me because everybody was saying you should vote, you should just wait to vote. But
That's one of the things that got me. Is
yeah,
like every time.
Yeah, the first time I was able to vote was in 2016.
Yeah.
Because I had just barely missed the cutoff to vote in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so frustrated because it seemed like voting didn't work. It seemed like all the people I cared about who were fighting and trying to do things, they ended up getting chased out of town, or they would eventually give up and just, hunker down and wait for the storm to pass. So, if I sound like a white savior, yeah, call me out and I'll happily do that. But, like, somebody has to keep fighting on this fight, and somebody has to keep going on the next generation because we can't give up. And, I wanted to try to do everything I can to try to make a difference. I was inspired by shows like Star Trek, like people who were different and doing these amazing things. And I was inspired by people that I was reading about in the public library, like Malcolm X and the Black Panthers and Eugene V. Debs and Harvey Milk. And I was just like thinking, these people are so cool. So
yeah, it's like these characters that are these characters that are larger than life. It's like,
yeah, like
holy crap.
Like, and you grow up in this kind of environment, you're like, I don't really feel like I had a choice in the matter. Not like in a negative way, but
exactly. And I totally understand that. Like it's like that around here as well. Like either there's people, either you have the people who are non-political, you have the people who are extremely like Republican Party, and then you have the occasional, people who are libs because they came in and gentrified some area. So they're they're libs. They like their breweries and they like their hops, but and they like their virtue sig. It really is a lot of it is for just straight up virtue signal.
I know.
So.
And yeah, and it's something that really bothered me as a kid because I remember there was one of these things. Look up the this happened in a neighboring town of mine in Texas, the Shaquanda Cotton case, because that was a really big deal. And I went to a neighboring high school, but I was at the same for a protest when I was like in 8th or 9th grade, And I don't remember the specifics, but I remember learning really young that it wasn't like it was a African American only issue. It was more like being the white kid and saying stuff for black people isn't good to do. Because there were people who were doing that.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the organizers yelled at them to sit their ass down. And I'm just like watching this as a kid going like,
Yeah, you see some great, like when you're a kid and like you observe that kind of thing, sometimes that's like a battle. You just like, you'll be like, holy shit, they just got taught.
Yeah, because you think like respect your elders and stuff and doing that, and you know, and you have to think about it and put it into context when you're older, and it's something that you have to really be careful about.
I agree.
Because I mean, I know I could definitely talk to the issues of being a disabled person, and you know, being a religious minority. I could talk to being adopted. You know, so many things. I don't know what it's like being African American. I mean, there's certain things that I think are really, really cool. Certain things that really suck. I wish I could walk a mile in the footsteps because I would like to understand it better. But the next best thing is to talk and to listen and understand it. And I think that's really important. And I don't think people do that.
Yeah, I think I think that's exactly right. As far as like a lot of people who have radicalized themselves to the left have not taken into account that they still try to talk for people who can talk for themselves. And you see that a lot of things where people will just get pissed off for somebody, like they get pissed off and they'll get pissed off at something that was like racist said, but like most of the time, black people have like are already like they didn't get we're not like surprised that like that someone said some racist shit. We just trying to get on our day, and then the discourse will be around: is this person racist or not? And it's like, we're getting trapped. Why are we getting trapped in this like conversation about like is this person racist or not? We need to be like trying to better the lives of the people this person's talking down to, and we need to be trying to see why are these racist like words so why is racism so effective right now? Like what is making it to the point where people are so receptive to these messages? So there's always layers.
I completely agree, and it's one of the things that is really, you know, seeing Obama run. I was conscious during Bush. I wasn't paying so close attention because I was like 10 years old.
I was a little kid too, so it was like didn't really like I was there, but I wasn't like paying attention.
I wasn't super there. I was more concerned about the dead fish. To be 100% honest.
Being a little kid is literally you're here and you're now. Like anything else outside of that is just like I don't. Yeah.
But I remember seeing the elections, and it was really weird. It was really weird and interesting to see that. I'm not saying that in a good way or in a surprising way, but see people that were qualified, that were respected, that were doing all these great things, routinely not being able to, get elected or having their districts redrawn specifically so that the next time they run, they couldn't get in.
Like seeing people get punished for saying the right thing.
Yeah. And and seeing it, and then going from this broad range of candidates in the primaries, including some people who seem like legitimately like, they wouldn't be half bad, to this very narrow, concept, and seeing the things that were going through. I definitely think that we definitely have systemic racism. We definitely have issues with the way we treat people who are not biologically male. And it's something that those two things are inextricably tied to each other.
Exactly. White supremacy and male supremacy are very real, and they might not always be tangible, but they're there. Like the system is still designed, even if the people who are benefiting from it don't realize it, it's still designed that way for it to benefit you. Like there's built in like fucking mechanisms
Yeah, like I bet your parents didn't have to. Did your parents ever have to give you a discussion? If you be careful if you're alone with a teacher or a professor or a fellow employee or a boss, because they might try to do something, and you'll have to decide what you're going to do because your
No,
company won't stand up for you.
as a boy, never had to have that conversation. I will say, we do need to have that conversation as well, because like that needs to be happening for both little boys, little girls, and anyone in between. Like that needs to be literally happening, because I think but I did have to talk about being like, and I think that's funny that girls and like people, yeah, I'm not girls and black people actually have to have the same fucking, not the same talk, but we have to have the talk about like, look, you're black, and when you're a little kid, you have this talk as a black kid. You get pulled aside, you get told that you're black, and you need to like be very aware of things that you're doing, because you don't want to anger or piss off a white person that could potentially be fucking crazy and come like make things bad for you.
All
So
right. Yeah.
it's like, so you see, so they're not the same, they're two different things, but like you said, they're very they're like very close tied together, because they're both forms of domination, like, and people have to not be their full selves, because they have to worry about another group of people who will either judge them or try to hurt them because they're being their full self.
Right. And having discussions like another example, like let me think. Oh, being taught self-defense and being uh told by your parents, hey, you, or not even being told, hey, you have a learning disability. It's actually a very serious one, but not being told until you're adult. But never your teacher's not knowing, or your parent, or nobody knowing,
Yeah,
because if you were to act out, they wouldn't let you go into classes because they would assume you weren't smart.
exactly. And
Um,
that
or
oh
people
the
who managed to find out, saying, basically saying outright that you slept your way in order to get those good grades, or slept your way to getting performances. And
That's
like,
disgusting.
yeah, like little girls who have mental health issues, they get accused of being hysterical and they go into psych wards and stuff like that. Little black boys, unfortunately, who have mental health issues, they end up getting incarcerated.
They're angry. They're angry. They're just mad all the time. They're just trying to start shit. It's just like, no, it's like both of those cases, it's the environment that we're put in. and
Right.
and just like the mental illness thing, like people just sit there and for example, autism. And I know, like, my daughter just got diagnosed, and she's 2. No, she's 3. And
She actually got diagnosed as autistic?
she was diagnosed. And
Alhamdulillah, she actually
yeah,
got diagnosed. I didn't get
it's
diagnosed until I was 18.
and that's what and this is and this is that's what I want to point out: the fact that there's people who walk around their whole lives not understanding why they're not why they're having such issues, and why, like, and a lot of people don't get to be aren't as sweet as you. They just like will lash out and can be violent because they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the social cues and things like that. And the people that they're lashing out against just think that they're bad people, and it's like, no, they've been undiagnosed. They don't know what they. And I can't imagine like letting, like, it's just not right being like letting someone go through their whole life like that without knowing what they're up against, at least just a little bit. Like, I don't know.
Right. I personally feel, and I'm not faulting my parents for this because, this was the 90s and early 2000s. It was
Exactly. In the
what,
90s and the early 2000s are completely have, like, especially medically with those kind of things, they have changed a lot.
yeah. And because I did have a speech delay, it was a little harder to detect, but everything else was, present.
Mm-hmm.
So, mental health, this goes into the issues that you are very passionate about. Now, I know you're very passionate about racism, systemic racism. What other issues are you passionate about as well?
Um, as a, I would say systemic racism, feminism, and the last one would probably be medical, just healthcare. Like the basis of good healthcare, of actual good healthcare, can just change so much. Even if that's all we were to get tomorrow, that could change so much, because us being kept sick and like not being treated for our issues and things like that is keeping us, is part of the reason we're not able to stand up and rise up against the elites, is because the fact that a lot of us are just sick and tired, and people are suffering from diseases. So
Right. No, I definitely agree. And I think also part of our material conditions, like, like the end of capitalism, a purely moneyless society like in Star Trek isn't going to end autism, because
so I
people will
think
still be
so I think I would just
autistic.
say my broad interest is just, I think I'm definitely interested in human rights, like period.
Yeah.
Like people
Mhm.
getting their human rights, no matter what you look like, what you like. Yeah, I want you to have human rights, because if you don't have human rights, then I probably don't have human rights either, because we can't be free till we're all free.
Right. No, 100%. And like we'll still have mental illness under with the end of capitalism.
There'll
We'll still
still,
have
exactly, there'll still be
disabilities.
murder, there'll still be thievery, there'll still be those kind of things. No one's like trying to say we're gonna have a perfect world, but we're gonna say that we can make the world easier for people against the forces of nature that are already brutal as hell. We already have like we already have enough bullshit that happens in life that we don't need like like a system pushing down on us either.
So I'm 100% agree, and this is one of the reasons why I love talking to you. You're always great to talk to. So,
Taking over you too.
some interesting things, some really interesting facts about you people may not know. You are a proud father, and you're soon to be a proud father to
Yes.
little girls.
Yes, I'm a girl dad.
And your wife, Fleece, is our erstwhile researcher on the team, and she is
Yes.
excellent. So, what else would you like us to know about you?
I enjoy playing a lot of guitar. I enjoy playing guitar when I have time. I am currently working on making beats. I'm trying to I want to merge them at some point, like guitar and beats. And I've played music for a while, and I really enjoy it. And I want to get back to it eventually. But I think I'm gonna find out eventually. I have an issue with like not. I know this sounds bad, but I have an issue with not wanting to sound corny, and I want to make like, revolutionary protesty music, but I don't want to be like cheesy about it, where it's just like rah rah rah, like those kind of songs. I want to make like a song that actually is good, and so I'll get to that eventually. But that, and I am a very avid fan of anime and manga.
See, I'm with you there on the anime, manga, and the music. Personally, I like writing classical music
Yeah,
and jazz. That's what I was trained in. I
that's
can't
what I like
write.
listening to. I like listening
Yeah,
to that. I'll listen.
yeah, I'll
I'm not.
listen to just about anything. I think the only thing I won't listen to is a lot of country, because a lot of country is very, very racist.
I'm okay. So this is gonna sound really bad, because I'm gonna, if me from like 5 years ago heard me say this, they'll be like, "What the hell?" I have gotten to the point where I can't listen to all metal anymore, because now I think I'm getting old, and I think that it sounds, sometimes it does. I'm starting to understand what old people will be like. This just sounds like noise sometimes, and I feel so old, like bad and old, like, because like I never thought that would happen. Sometimes I'm just like I don't want to hear that. My kids yelling all day. Like I got screaming. I already have enough screaming in my life. Like,
See, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I had to turn the metal music on low and then then read the lyrics.
yeah, I used to be like raw, raw, yeah, but now I'm just like, it's not that it's bad. It's just like I feel I just think have moved past it a little bit. And don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, there's some amazing metal bands I listen to all the time. But I'm talking about like just having it like there used to be times when I just blasted all day, and now I just have anything on. I mean, there's some country that I listen to. I don't like the recent mainstream country, because country used to be anti police
oh
and
yeah,
anti everything. Like there used to be some cool ass country song. It's like a police come on my arm, I'm gonna shoot. It's like hell yeah. But now
like
it's
Willie
just
Nelson or Charlie
exactly.
Pride.
Exactly. Even Johnny Cash was a badass when he used to sing.
Yeah,
So I
no,
mean,
definitely.
so I'm saying like, but today's country where it's just like talking about a big wheel and a beer and and flag, yeah, not for me.
Yeah, also, uh, some of the country songs are good.
Yeah.
I have issues with,
There's
and
a
some of them they feel disingenuous. Like if this is written by an actual rich person, this isn't country
oh my
music.
god, the class divide in country. How can you be like talking countries like this, like country and rap are like make like so much money, and it's just like how are you saying that you like are they're talking about like working class issues, but they like go home to like a fucking huge ass like
Yeah, how do
mansion?
they know about working class issues? I don't know about that.
That's something I think that's actually a topic that I want to tackle at some point, is the fact about like how a lot the language of working class language is co-opted by like pundits and stuff like that, so they can seem like they're like one of us when they're really just like people on CNN where they're just like, this is gonna affect you, blah blah blah. It's like, bro, we're not the same. You get like $30 million a year.
Yeah, like I like how they're always worried about the estate tax, and I'm like, bitch,
Like the salt tax and stuff like that. It's like,
yeah,
I don't
bitch, I don't have an estate. Nobody I know has an estate. If you have an estate, then you deserve to be taxed on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
if
like,
you are fancy enough to call what you own an estate, then you deserve to be taxed.
Yeah, if you have anything called a state, a manor, or a mansion, then you need to be paying on that shit.
Yeah, yeah, and like, okay, you got money, good for you. Yeah, they'll start paying up.
Exactly.
Because I know you didn't make that money ethically.
Exactly. There's a good video that I don't know if it's a video, but there was an article or something like that, and it talks about like post 9/11 country and pre 9/11 country, and you can see like the giant difference of like how it shifted from it was just talking about like fuck the police to like just like the all known patriotism country that we know today. That's a really good I think it was an article I read.
I've thought about doing after the oil crisis investigation. I definitely want to intersperse it with some pop culture things, and I want to do an analysis on shows that basically started in the 90s and ended in 2000s, and talk about how their tone changed.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Actually,
like from shows that are
especially there's a giant difference.
Like from shows that are ostensibly left, like The West Wing, to shows that were more conservative, like Seventh Heaven.
Seventh Heaven, 24.
Yeah, at 24. And talk about like just how in the span of a few years how this changed, because all these shows are readily accessible, like on streaming services, which I know viewers have at least one of them or pirate them.
Yeah, and they know they have to. I mean, they've at least heard of West Wing or like in
Yeah. So there's been a lot of things that have happened. The U.S. has invaded Somalia again, but a lot of so-called leftists start talking about it, but they're busy harping about Ukraine,
which we will be talking about. We're gonna be on the panel tomorrow. We'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
About the invasion of Somalia. Hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's gonna be the New Left panel on the 18th. Yeah, we're talking about Somalia.
I don't know why I keep getting the day. I'm keep being a day behind on the date. I thought tomorrow was the 17th.
Yeah. So U.S. invades Somalia. Roe versus Wade is going to get overturned. There's all these trigger laws coming in place.
Yeah.
You know, they give us until the end of the year. Otherwise, we're going to have environmental collapse. So they keep pushing that out a little bit. So I think that's kind of interesting. COVID's on the rise. So we're experiencing a second wave. We're experiencing another wave with even with numbers being underreported and no masking. So I've got a couple questions. What do you think it's going to look like in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks?
6 months, a year.
Okay, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, I'll probably be like, whoa, that interview was like, what, 2 weeks ago? And I'll be like, I thought it was like a couple days ago. And in 6 months, with the baby food shortage and everything, and the formula shortage and everything converging, we're going back. And then we have like what? Tomorrow we're going to be going over the fact about which one thing I didn't even realize, and I think Comrade K is going to be taking the lead on, is about Cyprus and how Cyprus is a playing card in between Greece and Turkey. And if Turkey keeps being like, nah, to NATO, they could get kicked out of NATO and Erdogan could go crazy, which is all hypotheticals, but they still could happen.
No, and Kay's got a lot of research to back that up.
He has a lot of research to back that one up. And I just think like, I don't even think I would think it would be like this now, like what we're seeing now, like how we saw the ramping up of censorship and all that. So the next 6 months is going to be crazy. I do think though that we're going to keep seeing a lot more ramping up of unionization. They're going to keep seeing a lot more people get disillusioned with the system. The only hope, the only thing that I worry about is the fact that are we going to be able to reach those people who are getting this solution to the system? We need to be able to be waiting for them, because a lot of them are going to be like wanting to have something that betters their lives, while a lot of them are going to be falling into reactionary politics, unfortunately.
Right, which is one of the reasons why we are producing this content.
Exactly.
And please like and subscribe. This show is being pre-recorded and will come out on Friday the 19th, so the 20th, so 2 days after the TNL panel.
So one thing I did wanted to mention, and I think it's going to be a bloodbath with the Democrats and Republicans this midterm season.
Oh, 100%.
I think that the Democrats have really, really, really dropped the ball. And I mean, I didn't have much hope for them in the first place, but I didn't think they were going to be like just actively dropping the ball, where they're just like give it to the other team. So I think this year's going to be, and I don't think, and people are asking, they're going to learn their lesson. I don't think they're going to learn their lesson either. They're never learning their lesson. This is how they operate. They fundraise. That's all they're good at. They fundraise. They find the most reactionary, sensationalist thing that they can virtue signal about, and then they fundraise. Even if it is a legitimate cause, they're not there to push it to where the system is ending. They're there to exploit the system. And we always have to remember that the neoliberalism that the Democrats and the Republicans push are one and the same, and that Democrats they create the situation so Republicans can come in and exploit it. They both are the same. There's no difference. So
I agree. And anybody who disagrees with that, remember, at this time, which is May 17th, 2022, Democrats have control of the House. They have a tie in the Senate. They have control of the White House. So, Republicans, even when they have control over one thing, they are able to get their people in line and stop all legislation, get the legislation they want. If the Democrats were truly a viable second party, which they are not, they would have the cojones to do the same thing. But clearly, they are the dim-witted other half.
Dim-witted, no pun intended.
Dim-witted other half of our one-party system.
Exactly. We have people. The Democrats are trying to say people who are actively trying to kill them. They're like, maybe we can talk to them. They literally think you're a demon.
I do think that one of the things that is born one of the things that we're seeing is, in addition to unionization, we're having more people joining things like the Communist Party, Socialist Party,
exactly.
Socialist Rifle Association, Community Guarded, soup things, whatever. If there's activism, if there's things going on, people are doing it, and it's going beyond reactionism.
I hope that the unionization does spark a lot more left consciousness, because that's a new level. That's the unionization is ultimately an awareness and a new awareness that's happening in the nation. So hopefully we can start getting a lot more aware about how unions affect us, and then we start appreciating ourselves at the job more. So we want better for the community, and so I hope that is a thing that bleeds out of itself.
I definitely agree. And one of the other things is that the way unions were vilified in the media was saying that it was for Ivy Coast liberals, and that were people who had college degrees and nothing that was important and didn't contribute nothing to society, and thus they wanted unions, or was teachers who had cushy jobs and had 3 months off. I know this is complete bullshit, but this is the talking points they had. So we're seeing unions in all sectors, seeing them in education, we're seeing them in entertainment, we're seeing it in service industries. And everybody deserves a fair wage. Everybody deserves healthcare. Everybody deserves the house overhead and their needs met.
We all need to be able to thrive. If we have a job, you should be thriving.
So it's one thing for the football team, you love to have a union, but it's another thing for your local coffee shop or the supermarket to have a union, I think, because it's more immediate.
We just had a first Starbucks in South Carolina unionized, and it's like 5 minutes down the road from me.
I know, it's awesome.
And that's unheard of here. So if we can start doing it here, that can happen anywhere.
Yeah, 100%. So, now, last thing. I mentioned that environmental collapse thing.
Yes.
What's the thing, dude? We screwed?
Environmental collapse. I think that we knowing what we're up against, we should keep trying, and we should keep trying to push for a sustainable future. I don't think that we're going to be able to roll back climate change like that, but I do think that we can at least curtail it enough so we can, like, get by. Like, I think that we've gone a little bit too far. I think we're going past the point where we can just like be like, okay, we can take the temperature back down. But I think we have to start thinking. I think that we're going to have to start transferring. If we don't have an actual green revolution, like, we are going to be screwed. Like, we have to actually like change systems to where they are green, and not just like I know we always go back to this fucking example, and not just like fucking Starbucks straws being like not plastic. We have to do we have to go in. We have to make sure that companies like what you're researching, like Exxon and BP, aren't off the coast drilling like a hole in the earth and making it bleed out into the ocean, killing more fish, and then poisoning people. What Stephen Donziger was fighting against in Ecuador, when he got they came after him for actually protecting indigenous people there, and all the oil that was spilling down there. It's just like, it's gross, and it's in the name of for capital, and I think that's the most disgusting thing. Like, it's not even like there's never any reason to destroy life. I just don't understand why is it never enough? Like, these people want to just like destroy everything, and then they're going to leave us here while they go to space. That's the it looks like that's the plan for them. Like, to me, like, it looks like they're just going to destroy the earth to the point where there's no resources left, and then they're going to like dip.
Well, I definitely agree with you. And there's two things that I don't think they've kept in mind: the amount of energy, the amount of people that actually still have to remain on Earth in order to get a single person up in space. And I'm not even saying like to Mars or anything like that. I'm just saying like to orbit around the fucking Earth.
It takes like 3 or 4 years to get to Mars. It's like,
yeah, like, so the idea that rich people can successfully get to Mars and escape this, or get to ISS and survive for the rest of their life on the ISS, is complete bullshit. So they're gonna die along with us. And the sooner they reach it back,
what is it? They've been going to near space. Like, they're like in this, like, they're not even actually in outer space. They're like in this like part between the stratosphere, like, where they're just like.
Yeah, but even then, the resources that are involved, the amount of capital is involved, the amount of people that are going to be involved to make that possible, with the conditions that they're creating, is going to make it impossible for that to maintain.
Just so they can have a joyride.
Yeah, so they're basically screwing themselves over. So it'd be their best defense to abolish capitalism and to help everybody out. But
we know that capitalism itself is a self-serving, self-destructive thing, where at one point, no one is going to be able to buy what they're producing, and that means that eventually there's just going to be shit sitting on shelves and things like that, because no one can afford anything, and there's no business, and then they can't sell anything. Eventually, it just eats itself. So
yeah, no, definitely. And one of the things that I think is an interesting thing that has been done, and actually I'm going under the oil investigation, is these lawsuits that have been waged, especially by young people.
Yeah,
collections of young people that have said, okay, so you've basically doomed us to live in a world that's vastly changed by this climate disaster. The least you could do is pay reparations. So they've been suing for reparations. And that's one of the things I'm actually going to be covering on the show. Because I think that hurting their bottom line and completely hurting their bottom line is maybe the only way to get through them. And corporations do 70% of the population on Earth. So
that's why I was going to want to watch that corporation documentary.
I do too.
Next week's gonna be really cool going over that.
Mm-hmm. So I think this might be one of the only ways to get them, which is.
You're right. Their bottom line. You have to go to their bottom line,
which is bleak, but
Hey, people. We make the corporations what they are. And they've stolen way more than they than we've ever seen from any of that shit. So.
Okay. So this is rather bleak, so let's shut it in on something positive. What is a good thing that you think might happen this year?
Well, like I said, we've been seeing the unionization. I think that's one of the good things going to be happening. My new daughter's going to be born in August. That's going to be a good thing for me personally happening this year.
And she's going to be a cute dumpling.
She's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to meet her. And politically, I don't know if I'm going to be excited what's going on like in the electoral realm, but if the outside of the electoral realm, there's a lot of good things going on. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact that things aren't the way they're supposed to be, and we're not going back to this normal that Joe Biden talked about. And I think a lot of people, even a lot of liberals, are starting to like reckon with the fact that when we see things like the Buffalo shooting, that there's been constant white supremacy just coming out of like certain areas and certain like high towers, and no, it's not the high tower. It's the high tower's fault that's projecting these messages, but at the same time, that high tower is being permitted in a system that is just that wants to thrive off of these messages. So I think that a lot of people are starting to like wake up to that. I don't know how many people, but you don't need a giant majority. You just need a loud minority, because if you have a silent majority, it doesn't matter because they're not going to show up anyways. You need a loud minority. Even just,
I mean, we see what the evangelicals have done, and they're like what 3 in 10 people, I think. They're very loud. They're very annoying, and
but they get things. They get their shit done because they're loud and fucking annoying. Yeah,
and I mean, I'm not saying kind of copy what fundamentalists do, because fundamentalism is inherently evil. But there are some tactics, the way they motivate their people, that if you could do it in a non-toxic way, could prove effective.
There are a lot of tactics, opposite tactics of ours that if their toxicity was removed from the way it's being done, it would be very effective for the left.
Oh yeah, definitely. You just need to have that same fervor to get things done. Okay, so I know you got to get going, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
I know this ran a little longer, but it was really great talking with you.
Yeah, that's fine. I enjoyed coming on. I hope I'll come on again sometime when after surgeries, and I'll help report something with you if you want.
That'd be great. I would love for you to come in and talk about Donziger, maybe.
Okay, that would actually be really fun. We may be able to get in touch. We may actually be able to get in touch. We'll see.
Oh, if we could, that would be so epic.
I mean, he seemed like he's just a dude just online now.
That would be really cool.
It would.
Yep. All right, and I'll let you get to it. Have a great day, Matt.
All right. Peace, everybody.
Peace.